Can we all just try to be a little bit quiet? Can we just try? Just a little bit. We have so many roosters right now being as loud as humanly possible. We have so many roosters being loud as heck right now. So, we are going to try. We're going to try to keep the dang roosters quiet. That's the plan here. So, sorry, it takes us a few minutes to get going sometimes because sometimes there's way too much noise happening at that end. Too many roosters. Anyway, hi everyone. I just wanted to welcome everyone to Andersen Acres. It is the first week of the month, the very first week of the month. So that means it's time for our farm talk question and answer. And we do a lot of things in the question and answer. I'm really glad you're here, whether you're watching live or catching the replay. I know I am streaming really, really early again. Sorry. I have a really difficult time pushing the stream later in the day. It's just not something that is easy to do. So, yeah, I have tried to think if I can do it a little bit later, but evenings are really, really busy on the farm. There's a lot of stuff that we have to do. So I did try to push the stream a little bit later because I've been asked, but you can watch it on the replay. Okay, it goes up as a VOD pretty quick after the stream ends. So if you did miss it, you can just watch it in the evening. And if you did have a question you wanted to get on the video, you can just drop it in the comments, or you can send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. Wherever you like, you can drop it in a comment in any video, and I will see it, I promise, even if I don't reply. If I don't reply, it's usually because I put the question, usually because I put the question in my notes for specifically now. So, let's get started here. If you're new, I'm Leanne. And around here, we raise everything from ducks and goats to rabbits and chickens. And we even have a very opinionated mini horse you can see over my shoulder there. He is doing stuff. I don't know what stuff he's doing, but he's doing stuff. He's always doing something. You never know. So feel free to say hi in the chat and let me know where you're watching from, even if you are watching this on the replay. And of course, if you have any questions about animals, homesteading, farm life in general, drop them in the chat anytime. I will answer them live if they're here when I'm live, or you can just send me a message. I know a whole bunch of people have said they're just not comfortable sending messages on a live chat. That's fine. You can get them to me another way. I am on both Facebook and Instagram. Facebook Messenger works really well. You can just drop me a line there. So, today we're going to have one main topic, and then I will answer a whole bunch of questions. I've got about 40 questions that I collected over the last week. So, today's main topic is something I wish someone had sat me down and told me before I started hobby farming, and that is what no one tells you about starting a hobby farm. You'll see all those Pinterest perfect photos of goats in sweaters and ducks in teacups and guys wearing little hats, you know, your chickens wearing cute little hats. And it's all adorable. It's all wonderfully adorable. Okay? And it looks like that's the life for you, right? It does. It really looks like that's the life for you. Yeah, that's the life for me. I'm going to love it. But the reality is a little bit messier. And I just got bopped by the pony. You get bopped by a pony. If you have a pony, you're going to get bopped. Hi. Yeah, hi. You're a good boy. He's a very good boy. But yeah, the reality of it is a little bit messier, a lot louder, and very, very poopy. Trust me, there is so much poop. And one thing people do not warn you about when you're going to start a hobby farm is just how much poop is involved. Hi, Shadowfax. Yeah, good boy. Okay. Okay. Little technical blip. That happens sometimes around the country, and sometimes you momentarily lose internet connection. It happens. Sorry about that. But it does happen. So, yes, there's a lot of things. There's the pony. There's a lot of things people simply do not tell you about starting a hobby farm. So, we're going to talk about a few of those things today. And it's not to discourage you from having a hobby farm. If you want a hobby farm, you should go for it. But there are some things you should be aware of before you start so you're not completely caught off guard. Good boy. This is a good pony. There he is. And one of the best things about hobby farming is this gentleman. He is a fantastic miniature horse, and he is a miniature horse, not a Shetland pony. I call him a pony all the time, but he's not a pony. He's a mini horse. So, I want to talk about how it's not just a farm, it's a full-time puzzle. Okay, there's a lot going on all of the time. When you first start up a hobby farm, you think you're signing up for a few cute animals and a couple of chores. What you actually get is a daily puzzle that changes every time it rains, or every time it snows, or when your goat learns how to open the gate, or when the miniature horse learns how to take down that new fence you put up. They can take down... What the heck? There's a turkey doing stuff. There's always a turkey. There's also always a turkey. There's always a turkey doing something you didn't expect. Turkeys have a lot of personality, and you never know what's going on with them. Good boy. Yeah. All about the cookies. So, nothing is ever done on a hobby farm. Okay? Nothing's ever done. The fence you built, now you got to fix it. The water bucket, it's frozen. You got to change the water again. The goat, she's pregnant again. The duck is now broody. There's always something happening. Nothing's ever done. You're never at the point where you're just like, everything is finished. I just get to enjoy it. That's not how it works. There's always something else. Okay? And sometimes that something else is this gentleman escaping. And that rabbit who just got out of his pen. Okay, so Bonnie is our Flemish giant. He can climb 4-foot fencing. That's okay, I'll get him later. He doesn't go anywhere. He's just going to pop around and probably go in and eat hay in the garage. Does anybody else have animals that refuse to stay where you put them? Because I can't be the only one, right? I can't be the only one whose mini horse goes on daily romps and whose rabbit just climbed a 4-foot fence. Please tell me I'm not the only one. Bonus points if it's also a rabbit or a mini horse. Anyway, I also wanted to mention the emotional roller coaster. Okay, Bonnie's going on the deck. He's a good rabbit. But I wanted to mention the emotional roller coaster because nothing really prepares you for the real emotional side of having a hobby farm. The joy of baby animals is real. Anyone who's followed me for any length of time knows that I love the baby chicks and the baby ducks, and I love the kittens, and I love the puppies, and I love the rabbit babies, the bunnies. I love them all. Okay? The goat kids, I adore them. Every single one of them. I love the process from hatching chicks to watching my rabbit give birth. I love all of it. But the joy of baby animals comes with its own heartbreak. All right? Its own version of heartbreak. Things go wrong. You can't always predict it, and you can't always stop it, and you can't always call a vet in time. Animals get sick, and sometimes the vet can't fix it, or sometimes it's a chicken you love and you can't necessarily justify taking that chicken to the vet. No shade. I mean, we use a vet for our chickens, but no shade on people who don't. I completely understand that a chicken you got for $10 at the auction is not necessarily an animal that you are going to spend $30 on, or $300 on, or however much your vet charges. My vet doesn't charge very much for chicken, but I understand that sometimes you can't spend the money on a chicken taking them to the vet, but you love them anyway. Sometimes you have to make some very difficult calls, and sometimes those calls involve culling, and it's not always fun. The emotional labor of hobby farming is real. It is very intense. Hobby farming does teach you resilience, and not the Instagram kind of resilience. It teaches you real resilience. Okay, I'm going to cry for 10 minutes and then patch that fence in the rain anyway kind of resilience. This terrible thing happened, but I still have to go and haul hay because I still have to feed my goats kind of resilience. The kind of resilience that tells you you don't get a day off just because today sucks. We have everybody hanging out here. But resilience is a part of hobby farming. You want to learn that type of resilience, but it's something that you have to learn if you're going to hobby farm. So one of the things I do wish, hi bud, one of the things I do wish someone had told me prior to hobby farming was the kind of resilience you are going to need, because you are going to need to be resilient. You are going to need to be able to pick yourself up on your hardest day and keep going anyway, because hobby farming is not like other hobbies. So thank you, Saruman. They're right here. But hobby farming is not the kind of hobby you could have if you want. Okay, we're going to turn the camera more that way. But hobby farming is not the kind of hobby you can have if you intend to curl up in bed and not do anything on a bad day. Because even on a bad day, when everything went wrong, you still have to get out there and feed the goats. You still have to get out there and catch the rabbit. You don't have a choice. So sometimes people forget that when you're picking a hobby, you're not the kind of person who on the worst day imaginable, the day when you're exhausted, the day when your pony's running around like a weirdo, because we have a turkey coming. Yeah. But if you're not the kind of person who can just get up and do what you need to do anyway, if you pull that fence down again, I'm not going to be happy about it. Shadowfax. But if you're a hobby farmer and you choose that as your hobby, it's not like baking. If you're baking, you can just not bake today, right? You can just say, I just don't feel like it. I'm just going to curl up in bed and I don't want to indulge in my hobby today. If your hobby farming is these guys, if these guys are your hobby, you can't curl up in bed and not tend to them. You have to get up and do it anyway. And I think sometimes there's not enough discussion when it comes to that, because a heck of a lot of the time we don't talk about it, right? We don't talk about how difficult it is to get out of bed when you've had the flu all week. We don't talk about how hard it is to go and feed the goats when your favorite goat just died. But it's not optional. It is not the kind of hobby you can just put on the shelf and pick up tomorrow. It has to be done now. So if you are not the kind of person who can just get up and do your hobby, because that's what hobby farming is a hobby. That's why it's called hobby farming. If you cannot engage in your hobby when you have, thanks guys, when you have a bad day, if you cannot engage in your hobby when you're not feeling well, then this is not the hobby for you. Thank you, Saruman. And here comes a duck. There's always someone. But it's really important to remember that no matter what, you have to get up and do it. So that's one of those things we don't talk enough about, how hard having a hobby farm is. I'm getting pieces of tree dropped on me. There's birds in the tree. So we don't always talk about how difficult it is, and we should. We should talk about that more. And projects never end. That's something else that people should talk about more on a hobby farm. You do not reach the point. Sorry? Did you just bang your head? Did you bang your head? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But, yeah. I'm sorry, buddy. But, on a hobby farm, projects never end. Ever. There's always one more thing to do. You will always have a list. There's a barn you need to fix, a coop you need to clean, a Jabba you need to listen to. Thank you. But there will also be a water system you have to install or fix or upgrade. There will always be something that you have to do. Right? That's Jabba. He's a good bird. He's checking out what's going on in the barnyard. But there's always something. And sometimes it seems like every time you cross one thing off your list, you add two more things to it. And it almost is ridiculous sometimes, but the list never ends. It's rewarding. If you want a hobby farm, you absolutely 100% should hobby farm. It is rewarding and fantastic. And I love every minute of our hobby farm. But it's also a lot. Hobby farms are a lot. And if you're doing it while working another job or raising kids, welcome to Team Chaos, because that's what this is. It's chaotic and insane. And I love all of it. Okay, I love all of it. Hi, buddy. So it's important to know that it is never ending. Okay? And I love every moment. I don't mind cleaning coops. I love looking after these guys. That's why it's my hobby. But there is always one more thing. You never hit the point where you can just coast. Just say, it's established now. Because hobby farmers don't have staff. Okay? Larger farms do. Hobby farmers are doing it for their own pleasure. Which means we don't have staff. So you don't have staff. You don't get to just say, I'm just going to coast. Because you got to go fix the fence. That's just the way it is. And another thing we don't talk enough about is the cost associated with hobby farming. We don't talk about how much it costs, and it's not cheap. Okay, it is not a cheap hobby. Even excluding the animals themselves. So the animals are the cheap part, by the way. Chickens are cheap. Like, chickens are cheap. Even that one. Chickens are cheap. I know you found bugs. Very good. But chickens are cheap. Even Shadowfax, he was under $500. He was cheap. That's not where the cost is. It's in the feed and the bedding and the vet care and the fencing and the tools and the getting the feet trimmed and all of that. It adds up fast. And just when you think you might be good for the month, just when you think, okay, we're good, we're in the clear, one of your goats gets the goat version of pink eye and needs antibiotics. Or the automatic waterer breaks and you got to replace it. All of these things happen, and they happen guaranteed at the most inconvenient times. I promise there is no convenience to when things go wrong. And they will. But let's be honest, we don't do this. Apparently we do this that we're interrupted by chickens constantly. Thank you, Saruman. He's literally 2 feet in front of me, and he likes to crow as loudly as he can. But let's be perfectly honest, we don't really do this because it's practical. We do it because we love it. But it is important to go into the whole thing with your eyes open. Okay? You need to be aware of what you're getting into. Because if your budget can't offer you that room for a sudden emergency, the horse gets hurt and you got to call the vet. Your goat is in labor and a baby gets stuck and you can't free it yourself, and you got to, it's the vet care. If your budget can't take these unexpected emergencies, or your budget's not big enough in the first place to accommodate the amount of feed you're going to need, which you always underestimate, you always guaranteed are going to underestimate how much feed you need. And that's normal. We all do it. But your budget needs to be able to stretch to accommodate that. You can't just not buy rabbit food just because you don't have any money in your bank account. You have to figure it out. Because this is not like other hobbies. This is not the kind of hobby that you can just put down and come back to tomorrow. It's the kind of hobby where these living, breathing creatures are expecting you to provide for them. And there's a fly. I don't like flies. But when you've made a commitment to these animals, where you have said to these animals, yep, 100%, I am there for you and I am responsible for you. You can't just say, well, I can't afford rabbit food this week. You got to figure out something to feed them. You can't say, well, I can't afford hay till next month. I guess you're just going to have to wait. Your mini horse can't wait for hay. He needs hay now. So these kind of things add up quickly. And they vary from year to year. One year you might get hay for $5 for a small bale. The next year it might be $10. So your hay costs this year are not necessarily the same as your hay costs next year. So you have to go into hobby farming with a budget that can stretch. And you have to not bite off more than you can chew. Because if you decide, well, I want chickens and I want goats and I want horses and I want cows and I want sheep, okay. If your budget can't accommodate all of those, you're going to find out real fast why we say go slow and introduce one animal at a time. You will find out real fast. But it is still worth it. Okay? Hobby farming is 100% worth it. I love every one of these creatures. From the mini horse who is staring at me. He wants another cookie. So from the mini horse, a goat that is in the barn, and I actually heard her knock something over a few minutes. I don't care. I love all of them, and it is absolutely worth it. It's a ton of work. I won't downplay the work. It is work every day. But it's also your own little slice of magic. Watching animals you raised thrive, growing your own food if you're into gardening, and the peace of early mornings out here on the farm. I get up in the morning knowing that this is my peace, that I can come out here and I can sit for half an hour and I can just remember that all is right with the world as long as these guys are here. And it's important that we have something in our lives that does that. And if hobby farming is that for you, that's great. Because it fills your soul in a way nothing else does. And I have a lot of different things I love to do. Nothing gives you that feeling like looking after these guys. Like the horse and the goat and the chickens and the rabbits. And there goes Bonnie. Yes, we have a rabbit loose. Whatever. It doesn't matter. He's not going anywhere. Just eating grass. So, I do this because I love it. And you should not get into hobby farming if you don't love it. And yes, you need to be aware of all of the things that nobody talks about. The heartbreak and the financial cost, the emotional cost, the sheer time commitment. Hobby farming takes way more time than you think it does. But it's also magic. It's wonderful. And we love all of these guys. So if you're thinking about starting a hobby farm, know this. It will challenge you, it will stretch you, and it sometimes breaks your heart. But it will also give you more than you ever imagined it could. Okay? It is very, very important that you are aware of the pitfalls, of the things that could go wrong, but also be aware of the joys. Okay? And thank you for saying that that's the best advice you've gotten so far. Start slow, start small. Yes. Wait until upsize. Always. Make sure you know what you're getting into. Because if you step off that cliff, it can be very difficult to climb your way back up. Especially if you jump off the cliff and it involves an animal that's more difficult to rehome, like cows. It's fairly easy to get out of chickens if you need to. If you get into chickens and you're like, man, I can't do this, fairly easy to get out of chickens. Most people will take chickens. Cows are different. Cows and sheep and horses and goats can be a different kettle of fish. They can be much more difficult to get out of, at least in a responsible way. So, yeah, we're going to move the camera again just to get to Shadowfax. There he is. He moves around a lot, so I have to be prepared to move the camera. Well, that was my little truth bomb. I am going to move on to the list of questions I have. I did select, and this time I actually categorized them into similar questions, so it's not so hodgepodge. So we can go through like one topic at a time. Okay? So if you have a question, you can drop it in the chat. However, I have plenty of questions here that people have submitted over the last week. And remember, you can submit questions on any of the social media platforms that I'm on or in the comment of any video. It's fine. You don't have to drop them in the chat. I know a lot of people can't do the live streams, and a lot of people watch the live streams later on in the day. That I get it. So if you have a question and you're watching this on the replay, it's okay to drop in the chat or send me a Facebook message. I'll include it next time. I promise. I do include them. So I divided the questions into different categories. And first, we're going to start with animal care. What is the easiest animal to start with? Lila asks. Well, the answer is chickens. Okay? Chickens are easy to find. They're easy to raise. Now, I would say ducks. I've got a duck on this side of me. So I would say ducks, except they're a lot messier and are a lot louder. So the easiest one to start with is chickens. I would almost say quail, but they're a little more delicate. So if you've never looked after a farm animal at all, chickens are probably your best bet because they live longer than quail, they're less delicate than quail, they are less messy than ducks, and they're not nearly as loud as ducks. Don't start with geese. They're nonsense. I love geese. They're nonsense as a first animal. But chickens definitely are the way to go for the very first animal. Another question I got is, do you vaccinate your goats? I am deciding whether or not I should vaccinate mine, and I'm on the fence. I absolutely vaccinate my goats, 100%, especially for CDT. It's a core vaccine that can prevent a lot of tragedy, and it's not nearly as expensive as having to treat for some of the diseases the vaccines prevent. Okay? So I 100% vaccinate my goats and my horse and my dogs and my cats, and they're all vaccinated. What bedding do you use for your rabbits? I use paper bedding. I prefer it because it doesn't stink like straw. It's easy and plentiful. I can make it myself because I can just shred literally everything in the house. Paper bedding works really, really well for us. A lot of people like kiln dried pine. I don't like the pine shavings. I just don't. In the summer, we don't use too much in the way of bedding because we don't really need it. It's really hot here in the summer. In the winter, it's really, really, really cold. So in the winter, we do make sure the rabbit houses are stuffed with bedding so they can stay warm. Can ducks live with chickens? It depends. So If you free range, so we free range, you're probably fine as long as you don't have so many drakes and not enough hens for your ducks. If you have too many male ducks, they will go after your female chickens. Okay, 100% they will. So if you free range, you can probably get away with it. Why do people raise geese? A couple of reasons. Sometimes they just love geese. And that was a question from the chat, by the way. Sometimes they want to eat geese. A lot of people like goose as a protein. Not me. I don't like duck and goose, but a lot of people do. And sometimes they raise them for warning animals because geese are really, really loud and they're really good at alerting you to something bad happening. So sometimes they raise them for that. There's a lot of different reasons to raise geese. When I get geese, I'm going to get them because I like these Sebastopol. They look like they're wearing ball gowns. I just like the look. So people have a lot of different reasons for raising geese. Food source would be the primary one, but not everybody raises them as food. So it depends. Anyway, back to ducks living with chickens. Okay, I would not coop them together. If you do not free range, do not lock your chickens in with your ducks, at least your male ducks. Your female ducks is fine, but bad things are going to happen to your chickens. Drakes are male ducks. Drakes are quite enthusiastic when it comes to their love life, and they're not that discriminatory. So they will go after your female chickens, and duck and chicken anatomy is not compatible. So bad things will happen to your chickens. So do not lock them in the same coop together and give your chickens no way to get away. We free range everyone together and that works. I would never lock them in together. Okay. What is the best fencing for goats? Kayla asked me. No climb fencing. You're going to want fencing that is smaller than your goat's hooves. So take a look at your smallest goat's feet and find wire, welded wire, nice and strong, that they can't get their feet in. If they can get their feet inside the wire, they're going to climb the wire and they're going to go over the fence. And you also want to make sure that wire is sturdy, because 100% they will yank that wire to the ground. Okay? If they can do it, they will yank it to the ground. So you want to make sure that it is sturdy. So you might want something like a wooden fence with the wire sandwiched between the wood, right? So if I were to put wire on this, I would then put another piece of wood on the inside, and I would sandwich that wire in between, and it would then keep the goats in. And you do want a minimum of 4-foot fencing. And you might need, depending on how tenacious your goats are, you might need hot wire or electric wire at the top and bottom, just to keep the goats from being too interested in pulling the fence down, because they will. Do you trim your animals' hooves yourself? Nope. I hire a farrier. I don't trim the goats myself. I don't trim the horse myself. I just don't. It's not something I like doing because I don't have a very good back. My back is not in good shape. And the farrier I use is fantastic with the horse and the goats. So she trims everybody. I don't. I don't, and I'm not going to. I'm going to hire a qualified farrier. That's not saying you can't do it yourself. If you want to learn how to do it yourself, you certainly can. But I do not want to. I have no intention of learning to do that myself. I'm just finding the horse, because every once in a while he escapes. There's a hole in the fence. But yeah, geese are a little bit mean if you don't raise them. They are. Okay, they definitely are a little bit mean if you don't hand raise. If you're going to get into geese and you want them to be your friends, you need to hand raise them. Like, either get them as eggs and hatch the eggs, or get them as goslings, because geese that are not super used to you are never going to like you. That's just the way it is. Geese can be kind of nasty. Okay, so yeah, geese can be a little bit nasty. We're going to look at Shadowfax. He's such a beautiful horse. Can Can you raise quail outdoors? Yeah. Our quail are outdoors. They are not in a barn. They are in a small quail coop, and we're going to build them a bigger space because we want more quail. But yes, you can raise them outdoors. They do fantastic outdoors. You just have to bear in mind that you need to protect them from predators. So whatever you use for your quail outside, you need to make sure neighborhood dogs can't get in it. Let's face it, neighborhood dogs are the biggest threat. We can all talk all day about foxes and coyotes and raccoons, but most of the time if something gets your guys, it's either your dog or your neighbor's dog. Unfortunately. That's just the way it is. How do you keep animals cool in the summer? Lots of shade, lots of fresh water. So everybody always has access to water 100% of the time. They can never not have water. We also have the benefit of being right on the lake. Like the lake is literally, there's a line of trees on the other side of the field across from our house, and the lake's on the other side of those trees. So we get a lot of the wind, so it helps keep them cool. Offering shallow pools for them to wet their feet. It can really help. With the rabbits, I like to offer frozen water bottles so they can lean against them and cool down, because rabbits are really susceptible to heat. And they're the ones that we have the most trouble with in the heat. Okay, they're the ones you're going to want to watch. What do you feed your goats? Okay, Arwen is a free-range goat. So she can eat whatever she darn well pleases. But in general, especially when I have pygmies and Nigerians, they get a good quality grass hay, they get loose minerals, and depending on the type of goat and whether or not I have wethers, they may get grain. So I don't give grain to boys because it can cause bladder stones. But milking does or pregnant does, I definitely give grain. So also they get a good quality goat feed, and Arwen gets access to good quality goat feed as well, just to make sure her rations are balanced. Okay. Do mini horses need special care? Yeah, kind of. A lot of their stuff is like larger horses, but miniature horses, you have to watch for obesity because they gain weight fast. So a lot of the recommendations for bigger horses don't work for mini horses because they put on weight so quickly. And you want to watch for metabolic disorders like Cushing's disease, because again, their metabolism is entirely different from a larger horse. So something that works for small horses doesn't necessarily work for big guys, and vice versa. So if you are going to get mini horses, you want to become well versed in mini horses. If you're going to go for larger standard horses, you want to become an expert in those larger horses. So the same with draft horses, though. They're different enough as well that you want to become an expert in that. So my expertise is in mini horses. When it comes to standard size horses, I know far less. I know a little. My sister's the real expert on standard size horses. Mine is these little guys. Okay. We're going to now move on to farm life questions. How much land do you need to start a hobby farm? It depends on what you want to raise and what your goals are. So you could do it on an acre. If you just want a few chickens and maybe a goat, you can do it on a single acre. That will work. If you want things like a bunch of sheep and horses and cows, you're going to need more space. So it depends on what you want to raise. So if you just want to do a few chickens and some quail and a small garden, you're probably fine with an acre. But think long and hard if you are buying new property to start a farm about what you might want. Okay, because you might want very specific animals and 1 acre might not. So generally, I recommend people start with like 5 acres, because 5 acres will allow you to have most of what you want. You might not be able to scale up and go really large scale because you only have 5 acres. But on 5 acres, you can have mini horses and a cow and some sheep and some goats. And they'll all be well accommodated in that space. How do you manage your time? A solid routine. So hi, there's turkey over there. But having a really solid routine helps a lot. Having a lot of lists. So the number of lists I have is rather insane. I use an app on my phone called Finch that helps me regulate and manage my tasks so I can keep really good lists and being okay with things not all getting done. Yeah, it happens. Lots of times it happens. Okay. It happens a lot where you're just not going to get everything done. Sometimes imperfect is good enough. So it's fine to not be perfect. And you learn that real fast running a hobby farm. What's the worst farm chore? What do I not like doing? I don't like hauling hay, but I like the smell of hay, so that one's not terrible. I guess I would say cleaning up after ducks is probably the worst farm chore. But even that, I don't have a problem necessarily with each individual farm chore. It does suck in the winter, okay? So the farm chore you dislike the most is going to be the one you come to despise in the winter. Especially, hi. Are you biting me? And when I say biting, he's not biting. He's just doing little love nips and tugging on the back of my shirt. Yeah, you're a good boy. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're a good boy. So I have my least favorite farm chores, sure, like cleaning up after ducks. And it is so much worse in the winter. So whatever farm chore you hate the most, winter's going to make you hate it more. Yeah. How do you keep predators away? Livestock guardian dogs. Where's Vodka? To keep in the house because she had puppies a week ago. So I think she's in the house right now. And Vodka's over by the gazebo. He's staring at the rabbit that has escaped. That's the other reason I'm not worried about the rabbit escaping, because the dog's right there. He's fine. So we use livestock guardian dogs. We have coyotes, foxes, bears. Every once in a while there will be a cougar, which is not necessarily fun. But we have dogs, and the dogs are an excellent deterrent. I would recommend, if you can accommodate livestock guardian dogs, getting livestock guardian dogs. They have to be actual livestock guardian dogs. No, your Labrador or your Rottie is not a livestock guardian dog. Actual livestock guardian dogs are big for a reason. They're hairy for a reason. And they have the right temperament. So livestock guardian dogs are what solved our predator problem. Yes, you can do the secure fencing and the locking everyone up at night. Predators are smart, and they do figure out that you lock everyone up at night, but you don't lock everyone up at lunchtime. They understand that you're home in the morning and the evening, but you go to work every day. They know. So the livestock guardian dogs have changed our predator problem. We no longer have one. We have bears, so a bear-proof coop doesn't really exist. So the livestock guardian dogs really do make a huge difference. Do you ever get to sleep in? Marnie asks. No. Maybe you would get to sleep in if you had a partner and you could change off who does what. So if, let's say, your partner works from home and you go away to your job every day, then they would probably be doing the waking up and doing the chores during the week, and you might do it on the weekends. So you might trade off that way, so that somebody gets to sleep in once in a while. You might pick a day, like Sunday is my day to sleep in, so you're responsible or something like that. But no, I don't get to sleep in. Some people can work it out with their, the goat's out. Goat's over there now. But some people can work it out with their family members, and they can figure out who exactly is responsible for what. I just get up and do it. I don't sleep in. Homesteading projects. This is the questions about homesteading projects. Have you ever built your own animal shelters? Yeah. I prefer to build my own. I will use prefab if it turns out they cost less, which does happen sometimes. So sometimes they are on a really sale and they're really cheap, so I'll use prefab. But for a lot of the time, it's just cheaper to build it yourself. Get yourself some wire, get yourself some wood, and you're good to go. What's a must-have tool for new homesteaders? A really good wheelbarrow with 2 wheels at the front so it doesn't tip. You will use that every day. And a cordless drill for fixing the many, many things. There are many, many, many things to fix. So a cordless drill really makes a difference. There's mosquitoes now. Good. Do you compost? Yes. The manure from the animals is like liquid gold. It bakes down into fantastic fertilizer. That's why we have such good. That's why our tomatoes are so big, and it's the poop. Yeah, we compost. What's the best beginning gardener crop? Zucchini or squash? The chickens are having a temper tantrum in the bush. There's nothing in there. They're all looking at me now. But zucchini or squash? Zucchini can grow if you forget it exists and you didn't water it all summer, and you'll walk out there and go, "Ooh, zucchini." So I would start with zucchini. Grows pretty easily. Squash is pretty easy to grow. I would leave things like tomatoes and peppers until you get a little more experience gardening, simply because tomatoes and peppers can be really finicky and sometimes they'll fail for no reason and it'll annoy you. So start out with zucchini to prove to yourself that something grows and you have a green thumb, and then expand to more difficult stuff later. How do you deal with mud in the spring? I pray. So we get a lot of rain in the spring and it gets very, very, very muddy. And if you've seen some of my farm vlogs from the early spring, you will notice all I do is complain about the mud. It gets very, very muddy here. So what we do is during the winter, we kind of collect the manure in different spots in the pen so that the horse and goat can get out of the water. We basically make them manure islands for the spring because we know it's coming. We know it's going to happen. So we basically build them manure islands. And it sounds gross, but it works really, really, really well. And then in the early summer, when the mud has passed, we just scrape it all down and ta-da, fertilizer. So we do that a lot. But basically, we just pray, develop some really good coping mechanisms. It's very muddy here. Next up is a bunch of questions about budgeting and mistakes. What's the biggest money pit on your farm? Fencing. It's always fencing. Fencing costs so much money. Okay? Fencing costs a weird amount of cash, and it's insane. Okay? The amount of money I've spent on fencing is absolutely nuts. Like, in a summer, it can be thousands of dollars. Like, it's so expensive. I'm just thinking how much money we have spent on fencing this year already, and it's just the beginning of June. I think I've sunk a couple thousand into wire and wood to add new fencing, and it's only the beginning of June. And we want to build new rabbit pens, and fencing sucks. You're right, fencing sucks. It's expensive and it sucks. Have you ever regretted buying an animal? No. I think long and hard before I buy a new animal all the time. I don't ever, and I am an endless researcher. I will research till the cows come home all the time. So I've never regretted an animal. There have been a piece of equipment here and there or a tool that I regretted buying from time to time, but not an animal. Okay, I have bought things like waterers that I spent a lot of money on, or feeders that I spent a lot of money on, and it turned out I didn't need to do that. It turned out they were not as good as I thought they were going to be. So yeah, sometimes I regret things, but not animals. What's one thing you wouldn't do again? One thing I would never do again. There's a couple of breeds of chicken I'll never have again. It's not that I regretted having them, but like I did not like leg bars. So one thing I won't ever do again is buy leg bars, probably. just because I didn't like their personality. Some people love them, and that's great for them. I love that for them. But I do not like leg bars. So that's something I wouldn't do again. I didn't regret having the leg bars, but I was fine when they were gone. Is it cheaper to raise your own eggs and meat? No. It's definitely not cheaper to raise your own eggs and meat. However, it is more ethical and it is more rewarding. You will feel better about the eggs you consume that came from your backyard chickens than you do from the eggs at the store. So, is it cheaper? No. It will cost you more to get a dozen eggs out of your chickens than it costs you to go to the grocery store and buy a dozen eggs. But I don't think that matters to me. Like, I don't care. I want my own eggs. I don't want to buy store-bought eggs. I don't like buying store-bought eggs. Sometimes I have to in the winter when my girls are being slackers. But generally, it's more expensive. Also, really worth it. How do you afford it all? Plan carefully. Have a budget. Make use of what we already have. So if I need a waterer, but I already have a black rubber tub, I'm just going to use the black rubber tub as a waterer. So the trick to affording it, if you don't have a ton of money, and we don't, if you do not have a ton of money, then the trick to affording it becomes making sure that you have a budget, that you stick to your budget, that you plan carefully, and you prioritize what's important. So yes, you have to fix the fence that the goats are escaping out of because you can't have your goats running willy-nilly all over the neighbor's yard. Do you really need to make that fencing the fanciest fencing on the planet? Recognizing that good enough is good enough can really help your pocketbook because you won't have to constantly be looking for cash. And don't forget to check what you have. Okay? Most people who have hobby farms have junk piles for a reason. It's so we don't have to go to the grocery store. I mean, not the grocery store, the hardware store all the time. Don't like going to the grocery store either. But keep your junk. Go through your junk. Figure out what you can use. Always evaluate what you have before you run to the hardware store because it's definitely worth it. That's like we have in the bushes here, we have an old double sink that I am going to bury in the ground and make a little splash pool for young ducks instead of buying a splash pool. Because it was here when we moved here and it's just been sitting here since we moved here. I might as well bury it and use it. So use what you've got instead of buying new all the time. Personal and fun questions. What animal has the most personality? This one. Hi, sweetheart. This one. That was good timing, baby. That was really good timing. Arwen, everyone. Arwen has the biggest personality, hands down. She is hilarious. Whether she is getting into the feed shed or headbutting the door so someone will bring her snacks, she's got more personality than pretty much anyone. She's also a tiny chaos machine. Goats are chaos machines. It's just the way it is. Do your animals have names? Yep. I don't want to have so many animals that I don't remember their names. That's kind of my one thing. So all of the chickens that we have names. We don't always call them by their names because sometimes you don't care about calling that particular chicken, but they all do have names, and I remember each of their names. I don't expect other people to remember their names because they're mine, but yes, all of our 40 chickens have individual names. 45 chickens? I thought we only had 25 chickens, but that's because I wasn't counting the far coop chickens. Chicken math. Best thing you can do, don't count them. Do not count your chickens. It's not worth it. What's your favorite animal on the farm? Depends on the day. Tequila is fantastic. My livestock guardian dog who had puppies, so she's in the house. But Fax is one of my favorites. I adore him. Arwen here, down there. Arwen laying beside me here. Arwen's one of my favorites. I have a lot of favorites. I think Jabba's hilarious, one of my roosters, so it depends. I have a hard time picking just one favorite because they're all hilarious. Have you ever had an escape artist? Asked as we have a rabbit running around on the lawn. Yeah. Bonnie, the rabbit, Shadowfax, the mini horse. Yes, we have escape artists all the time. Everyone's always out. And it's funny, but also, yeah. What's the weirdest thing that's happened on your farm? Well, Bonnie climbed a 4-foot fence. He's a rabbit. Shadowfax likes to let the chickens ride on him, which I think is funny. Especially in the winter, the chickens don't want to walk across the snow, so they get on Shadowfax and use them as a taxi. Whatever. Whatever works for them. Do you sell anything on the farm? Yes, I do. I sell hatching eggs. Sometimes, mostly I sell chicks. I sell baby bunnies, I sell ducklings. I sell eggs for human consumption, quail eggs for human consumption. I sell quite a few things on the farm. I sell feathers. Feathers are really good if you have a lot of fly fishermen in the area because they make lures out of them. So I sell those. I sell quite a lot of stuff. I sell rabbit manure for compost because I have more than I need. So yeah, I sell plenty of things. And do I make much money at it? I make enough money at it. The money I make feeds them, right? So the money I make feeds the animals I've got. I don't expect more than that. I'm not a person who is looking to expand the operation to cover more than just the cost of the hobby farm. So selling baby bunnies pays for all the hay I need for a year. It works out. Do you homeschool your kids? No. And the reason I do not homeschool my kids is there are subjects, for one, that I am not well versed enough in to teach. There are subjects I could teach them. Science and math I excel at, English I excel at, but there are some subjects like history and social studies that I just would not be qualified to teach. Also, my biggest worry about homeschooling is my children would not be exposed to ideas that were not mine. I want my kids to know things beyond the things I know, and you can't teach what you don't know, right? So I'd rather my kids be out in the world learning more than I can teach them. There's plenty of time for me to teach them, and I do. Part of the reason I make the videos I make is so that they can look back and go, well, I didn't really want to get goats, but now I want to get goats, and I want to watch Mom's goat series so I learn how to take care of goats. So there are plenty of things I can teach them, and I do, but I am not particularly interested in having them locked into just my way of seeing things. So no, I don't homeschool. I want them exposed to more ideas that I can expose them to. Do the kids help with chores? Yes. Some of the animals, a lot of the animals are theirs. So the Rex rabbits belong to my younger son, Rowan. You only get to pick an animal around here if you're going to look after it. Okay? I'm just going to move my mic because it's getting windy. I'm going to pull my mic up and drop it. That's good. Or not. Let's just put that over here and won't move so much. There we go. But around here, the kids have to look after the animals they picked. I don't expect them to look after the animals I picked. So Shadowfax is actually Tristan's horse. That means he has to do all of the things associated with the horse. He's got to clean up after him. He's got to feed him every day. He's got to make sure he's got water. I handle things because they're kids, right? So I handle things like booking the farrier and buying the hay and sourcing the hay. But I expect him to do the day-to-day work because Shadowfax is his horse. Same with the Rex rabbits to my younger son, Rowan. He has to look after them. That's the deal. They can have whatever animal they want, provided they look after it. Okay? That's the rule. So, yeah. They look after animals because some of them are theirs. Not all of them. The far coop is my chickens, but Tristan looks after them because he likes them a lot. But I don't expect anyone to look after my Holland lops or my goats. That's my job. It's my thing I have to do. So around here, you look after the animals that are yours. If you need help, you ask. What's your dream animal to add? I want a mini cow and peacocks. I probably will never have the mini cow because I am not super fond of cows, but I want a little one. I might not have the cow. You're making weird noises, Arwen. But I am definitely going to get the peacocks. I just have to build the enclosure for them. And I haven't done that yet. But definitely I'm going to add peacocks. Do you ever take vacations? No. My idea of a vacation is right where I am. This to me, sitting here with them, I can't imagine a better vacation. I've got a fainting goat sitting on the ground beside me, and there's a chicken dust bathing on this side of me. I really can't imagine a better vacation. I've thought about it because the kids could look after the farm for a week. My dad and my mom would come pitch in. My best friend would come and house sit if I asked her to. But ultimately, the reason I don't take a vacation is I can't think of anything I would enjoy doing more than I like this. So this is my vacation, which means I'm having a vacation every day because I spend a lot of time. I work from home because I'm a writer, so I spend a lot of time sitting here anyway. So my idea of a vacation is I'm just not doing my work. And I do that, but I still stay here and hang out with these guys. Like, this is my magic right here. I don't need to go on some vacation. I like a staycation, I think is the thing people say. But no, I don't need a vacation. This is... Thank you, Jabba. This is the vacation I like. Anyway, I do have to wrap up because it's getting late. It's been over an hour. That's wonderful, Jabba. I have to wrap up and get going. I have things I have to do. That's why I can't live stream later in the day. Sorry about that. I hope you enjoyed hearing some of the behind-the-scenes truth about what it's like to start a hobby farm and some of the things that can and will go wrong. Whether you're dreaming about it or just starting out or deep in the muddy trenches with me, I'm really glad you took time out of your day, either live or in replay, to watch this. If I didn't get to your question today or you're watching on the replay, drop it in the comments after the stream or send it to me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm always happy to answer when I can. Usually I collect up those questions and I put them in the next live stream. So definitely drop me a line and let me know what your questions are. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up because it will allow you to see more of these in the future. We do go live every Friday. Next week, we will be in the kitchen baking or cooking something. So definitely come hang out with us then. I'm not sure what I'm going to be baking or cooking yet. I haven't made that decision. As soon as I know what it is, I will schedule it and you'll be able to see it on the channel page. But I'm just not sure. I haven't made that decision yet. But we will be in the kitchen. We will be cooking or baking something. Maybe something we want to have for dinner. I don't know. I haven't decided. Thank you. Lots of crowing. But that is about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. Until next time, give your goats a hug, mind your ducks, and I'll see you tomorrow. And we are going to go out with a better shot of these guys if we can. I don't know. We're not going to get a better shot. Or, no. No, we're not going to get a better shot. Oh, well.